Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So it's time for a new Final Destination franchise ranking on the channel, and I have done one of these in the past. I think the time I originally did it was back in 2023. It was a couple of years ago, and I thought since we've had the sixth film now, since we've had Final Destination Bloodlines come out, it's an excuse for me to renew this ranking, and this time to do a tier list. Actually, I thought it would be cool to do this in a tier list format this time, make it a bit more fun. And I'm doing what I did last time in a way. I am doing a ranking of the Final Destination films, but also the Visionaries as well. The Visionaries will also be going into different tiers. So you can see the tiers I've got. I've got Final Destination. These will be the Final Destination films or Visionaries that I like the best, the S tier ones. We've got Nearly Destination as the next one down. These are the ones I still really like, but not as much as the Final Destination category. Halfway Destination are those films, Visionaries, that, are fine, are okay, but they're just fine. They're nothing more than that, nothing particularly special. We've got Service Station as a category, which I just thought would, represent those films that I don't really like all that or as much, that are probably weaker, but not quite bottom of the barrel, not quite the No Destination category, which is my last category here. Which are the films or the visionaries that I just, I don't really like them much at all. Yeah, so those are the categories here. Tried to keep in theme as much as possible with the whole destination thing, but take that as you will. So let's start here with the original, the final, original final. I'm just going to say the Final Destination, but that's of course Final Destination 4. This is the original Final Destination, which starred Alex Browning, starred Devon Sawa as Alex Browning. Incidentally, he's one of my favorite characters, and when I come on to him as a visionary, I'll reveal a little bit more about my thoughts on him. But this is a solid film, and it's got some great kills. For each one of these, I'll name two of my favorite kills. My favorite one is probably Terry Chaney. I know the hit by bus thing is quite a common sort of Final Destination type kill, but in this film, it took me by surprise when I originally saw the film, so that's always stood out in my memory. So Terry Chaney is one. And I feel like the kills in this film are more natural, or don't feel as over elaborate as they became in later films as well. And there's something about, the anxiety before you get on a flight that is captured extremely well here. Yeah, I think that the premonition sequence is also one of the best here. And yeah, I think that my other favorite kill would probably be Billy Hitchcock's decapitation, which is pretty brutal too. And again, I suppose that one didn't quite take me by surprise as much, but it was pretty brutal. So I think this is a really good film, but is it my favorite? Um, it's never quite been my favorite of the Final Destination films, to be honest. But as the original, it is still really good. I'm going to put it in Nearly Destination, the original film. It is a really good one. I also love Clea Rivers, Ali Lata in this, who is great as a sort of companion to Alex Browning. So I like that relationship a lot in this film too. Next up, we're talking about Final Destination 2, which for me, as per my original ranking, I think this remains my favourite. And it's interesting because the director of this film was also a stunt coordinator, I believe. So that kind of shows through with how good the opening sequence is and the premonition sequence to this. I think a Final Destination film for me has to have a great premonition sequence to really reach that top level, and this one does. I think the kills are also pretty top notch here. My favourite one in this is probably Tim Carpenter with the glass panel falling on his head. That's pretty brutal. And for the mum as well, who's kind of watching. That's really quite a brutal one for me. Also, an honourable mention has to go to Kat Jennings for me with the airbag going off and the that sort of wedge kind of going through her face. That's pretty nasty. So Final Destination 2. I also kind of like, I mean, a lot of people say this one has the weakest characters, and I sort of see that for this one. But I like the sort of relationship between Kimberly and Thomas in this film. Personally, I think that's actually quite well done. And overall, it is my favorite. So I am going to put Final Destination 2 into Final Destination. It's just how I feel. Next up, we've got Final Destination 3, another really solid film here, another really solid one, another really good premonition sequence, I think. And, I do think this one has a very strong lead, who I'm going to talk about again a bit more when we come to the Visionaries in this list. But it's a really great premonition sequence. The kills are also pretty good in this one. Special mention to the tanning beds, but the tanning bed deaths. But my favorite is actually Erin's death, which is the nail gun kill, which shocked me the first time I saw that. That was kind of like pretty another really brutal one, and it's kind of nasty the way she kind of like you can see her sort of. As the nails are going into her, just how it's just nasty. It's nasty as anything. So Final Destination 3. I think I'm also going to put this in Nearly Destination. Really good one. You know, starts to get a little on the schlocky side of things by this point, but I think we've got a worse, schlockier film on this list coming up fairly soon, and that is Final Destination 4, The Final Destination. The only one in the series I don't really like, to be honest. The CGI in this one is particularly bad. I mean, to be honest, at least in Final Destination 2, the stunts and the way that was all done felt more real for me than some of the other films here. And particularly the Final Destination has very bad CGI in its opening sequence with the whole car racing accident. Which I didn't think was particularly good, and yeah, the CGI really showed that up. I don't think the characters here have much depth either. Almost across the board, the characters are very weak in this film as well. So there's just nothing here. Even the relationship, um, that's sort of the main one. I just don't feel it in the Final Destination. I do think it's the weakest of the films, and it's going into No Destination for me. One, I'm just not. I'll watch it if I'm doing a Final Destination marathon. I will watch this one, but it's not an awful film, but for me, it's the weakest of the bunch fairly easily. So that's why it's going into No Destination for the aforementioned reasons. I just think the kills are not that great. The CGI is bad. There's just very little character developments, and sort of anything that you go to a Final Destination film for is just not really here so much for me. People may contest that, which is fine, but yeah, that's my view on this one. So Final Destination 5, I feel like it's definitely a step up. And actually, having rewatched this one, I think this is a good one. I still don't know if I like it as much as any of the first three films, though, but I like the opening sequence quite a bit. And whereas in this film, I quite like the relationship between Sam and Molly quite a bit, actually, and that sort of lifts it up a little bit for me as well. The bridge collapse is good. Some of the kills are actually pretty fantastic in this one. I think I've got Candice Hooper, the gym one, which is a really brutal. That really makes you fear. I mean, if you're a gymnast, I don't know how you could ever go to a gym again, and if you've seen that. And yeah, you got also Olivia Castle's eye operation going wrong, which is pretty haunting too, and very, a little bit emotional because she's got her teddy bear and stuff. Oh, that's kind of nasty as well. Um, I'm going to put Final Destination 5 in Halfway Destination just because I still think it's kind of weak in a way compared to the first three, but it's got a good opening sequence and slightly better characters than at least the Final Destination had, the fourth film. So it's going in Halfway Destination. And now we've got the new film, Final Destination Bloodlines. And I've been trying to decide where this would go in a ranking. I've been struggling because I think this is a really good one. And it does a lot of what, you want from a Final Destination film. I also think the performances are all of the best that we've had from any of these films, even going back to the first film, which I thought was pretty strong performance-wise. Um, so yeah, I mean, actually, I think it's going to go into Nearly Destination. I don't think it's going to go into Final Destination. That it's possible with time this one could go higher. I'm just so aware of the recency effect of going crazy about something as soon after you've seen it. But I'm not sure instinctively whether it is my favorite above Final Destination 2 yet. It feels too early to call. However, this was very good and very entertaining and ticked a lot of boxes for me for what I want from a Final Destination film. The opening sequence actually wasn't so much for me. I just felt it was too elaborate. It was just, I mean, I know Final Destination's wild and crazy anyway, and the deaths are deliberately meant to be, insanely like made to look as unlikely as possible, right? With the way things gradually unfold and that it's death by design. And I know it's meant to be like that, but what I liked about the original was I felt it was a little bit less kind of everything was less far-fetched with what was going on. these were things that accidents that could happen to you. Whereas I think in Final Destination Bloodlines in the opening sequence, it didn't quite land for me. I didn't think the CGI in that sequence was also particularly good. So that's affected my overall judgment of this one, partly because of that opening sequence. I know a lot of people love the opening sequence to Bloodlines, so I am a little bit possibly in a minority here. So I will say that. I will say that. But you know what? I love Tony Todd in this. I love a lot of the main part of the film, with the other characters, Eric Campbell being one, and I think the lead's really good. As I said in my full review, go and check that out if you haven't already. My full review. I think Stephanie is good. So I think I'm going to put it just after Final Destination 1 there. I think it will be third in my ranking, possibly moving up to second in time. Maybe I'll grow even fonder of this one, but I think Final Destination 2 might always be my favorite. All right, time to move on to the Visionaries. First up, we've got Alex Browning, and Alex is going straight into S tier. And I'll explain this, right? Originally, he wasn't actually top of my Visionaries rankings. Those of you that remember my original ranking, I didn't put him top, but I've rewatched this one. I love Devon Sawa's performance. I think it's brilliant. He captures the anxiety for me of any of these things as well, if not the best out of all of these actors. You watched him in the way he stops and gets off the plane. You can see just he's visibly sweating, and he's getting that performance right down to a T, and genuinely like freaking everyone out and freaking the audience out with how he does that. And he's really good throughout the film, I think, as well. He's pretty good, and I like his character. He's one of the more vulnerable characters who, if you knew that death was after you and you were marked for death, I mean, you would be terrified, right? I think you would be like Alex is. You'd be panicky, you'd be super anxious, which some of the other characters don't convey as well as Devon Sawa does. So Devon, you're my number one, buddy. You are going into Final Destination. Has to be. He's the best for me. And I have slightly changed my mind there from my original ranking, those of you that remember my original ranking video from a couple of years back. So next up, we're talking about Kimberly Corman, who actually was my favorite for a long time. And I still do really like Kimberly. I think, a lot of people don't think that AJ Cook did a very good performance in this film. I slightly disagree with that. I think she did do quite, and it's not just about looks. I know Kimberly Corman is absolutely stunning. Um, but I do think that she's actually, as the film goes on, I do think the anxiety comes across pretty well. I really like her relationship with Thomas. I think it's believable. I might be alone in that, but I really like that relationship with Thomas, which pushes her ranking up for me higher. I'm at Kimberly into Nearly Destination. Next up, we've got a favourite of many people's, Wendy Christensen, played brilliantly by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, it has to be said. And I do really like this character as well. I think she was third in my original ranking of Visionaries, and I could have put her higher, to be honest. I think that performance is very good. She is the most, I think her performance is what anchors that in almost that entire third film, and is the reason why I, do like Final Destination 3 quite a bit. Um, and the way she is, you can see her anxiety pretty well. Um, and I feel like, the way she interacts with her friends is pretty convincing too, um, throughout that movie. So I I'm gonna put her into where should I put her? I'm gonna put her into Nearly Destination as well. Next up, we've got Nick O'Bannon. Um, and actually, I didn't state what my favorite kill was from Final Destination 6. I'm just looking at that now, and I'm in horror. I've realized I have not said my favorite kill from Final Destination 6, which I'm going to say is actually the waste disposal one. I know you had the MRI scan kill, which was really insane, almost too insane for me, to be honest, to still be in the film. But I know a lot of people love that one. It was pretty amazing, to be fair. But yeah, the waste disposal one was the most brutal and haunting to me. The way that Julia was killed. I think it's Julia anyway. That was nasty as anything. So anyway, going back to the Visionaries now. Nick O'Bannon. For me, I'm putting Nick into Service Station. I know actually he has his supporters, this character, but I think first of all he's in a really bad film, which never helps anybody. And he does fight hard actually for other people in this film. So that makes me feel a little bit more conflicted. Maybe it's harsh putting him in Service Station, come to think of it. But out of all the characters, he doesn't stick in my memory, and that's a big problem. You know, any character I really like, they have to stick in my memory, and Nick just doesn't stick in my memory. I'm sorry, Nick, buddy, you're going into Service Station. Not no destination, because like I say, I think he has a fight about him and a willpower there. So but he's in my least favorite film, so that never helps, and inevitably kind of pulls you down a notch. Next up, we got Sam Lorton. Sam is actually going to go in the same category as his film Halfway Destination. I think he's okay, you know, rather like with Nick, there's nothing super memorable about him, but I seem to remember I really like the way he and Molly, he really tries to save her towards the end. And I think he's really bold in those last scenes. And, just there's something about that part of the final part of the film I really like. So that's why Sam Lawton is going into the middle tier here, going into Halfway Destination. But again, not super memorable, not anything that would really want me to put him in the top two tiers here. I have to be kind of strict, but yeah. And last of all, we've got Iris Campbell. And I don't yet know, I haven't seen enough YouTube videos or reviews to know how people rate Iris, which is a good thing because it kind of makes me go in um, almost blind, which is what you want. You don't want to be affected by outside influence when you're doing these kind of things. It's best not to be, I think. And with Iris Campbell, I don't have an idea yet of how people see it. Now, for me, I see the young Iris and I see the old Iris, and I think the old Iris is fantastic and actually pulls this character overall up because I really enjoyed the performance of the older Iris in the film. I think her name was Gabrielle Rose or Rose Gabriel. Can't remember which way around those names are. I like the young one as well, and I think that Breck Basinger did a good job as well. It's just I found the older one, I really liked her and the way she interacted with the younger, her granddaughter, Stephanie. But she was pretty good in the premonition sequence as well, and believable enough. I thought for me, I'm not sure I'm going to put her. I I really like Wendy, Kimberly, and Alex the best of all these films, and I don't think Iris has quite yet overtaken any of them. So I'm going to put her maybe just above, though, because of the older Iris. That makes her rate me slightly higher. I'm going to have her in Halfway Destination. So that's Final Destination 6. Bloodlines is Visionary, of course, and she's going Halfway Destination. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video. It's a little bit chaotic. Apologies for that. But this is how I feel. So we got Final Destination 2 as my favorite film, and Alex Browning as my favorite visionary. We've then got a lot of other, pretty high up here. This is a solid franchise. We've got Final Destination, the original film, as being in Nearly Destination, along with Final Destination 6, the latest one, Final Destination 3. And then two other of my favorite visionaries, Kimberly Corman and Wendy Christensen, coming in as Nearly Destination. Then next up, the ones that I don't mind at all. I think they're solid, they're decent enough. You've got Final Destination 5, the film, and then Iris and Campbell and Sam Lawton coming in here halfway. And then poor old Nick, I put him in Service Station. One of probably my least favorite visionaries, to be honest. And then in No Destination is the film, The Final Destination, which incidentally is the film that Nick is from. So you can tell The Final Destination is not a film I'm a fan of, really. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to drop a like and a sub. And let me know what you think of these films and these visionaries and how you'd rank them and what tiers you'd put them in. Otherwise, from me, the Green Man, until next time, it's bye for now.